Thank you so much. I just have to squeeze in one comment there because it's so hard. Turn my video off. I would bounce it. So many good remarks. And I think that what we're saying about terminology. I was on a panel on open data just the other week. Open Finance it was called. It was with the Cambridge Institute of Alternative Finance and Philippe. And we talked about liability. And of course, that is a super important topic in this. But then we talked about if we don't call, in this case, when we're talking about the payment service initiators, the same thing in different markets, that liability is very different. And we can't do things together because the liability is much bigger in one market than the others when we don't talk about the same thing. So good point there, Holly. But I'm going to invite my panelists to talk about privacy enhancing technology. So I have Aslina Idris with me. Aslina is the Senior Director and Head of Strategy and ESG Office at PayNet Malaysia. Thank you very much for joining us, Aslina. And I have Jay Prakash. He is the CEO and founder of Silence Laboratories. You can almost hear on the name that he is the privacy enhancing technologist in this call. And as Holly said, this is a topic that I'm very, very interested in. For a long time, I was just holding out and did what I know that many other people are thinking is that zero knowledge proof, this ZKP acronym, was something that was going to solve this. I thought, like, once we get them in the room, they were told us has to do, we need to do some standards around it, and then Bob's our uncle and we can go away and do this. Then in January, BIS wrote a really good paper on privacy enhancing technology that really opened my eyes that it's not that simple. And I think we have simplified a little bit in our industry what PETs, the privacy enhancing technology, could potentially do for us. But I think before we get there, there is a lot of work to unpack and terminology to agree on and technology to understand. So I'm going to kick this off with Aslina. So you are the payments person in this discussion, the practitioner, you are infrastructure in Malaysia. Today, what and how are you talking about privacy enhancing technology within your organization?
So, okay, let me just provide context on where we are in Malaysia as far as privacy is concerned. Data privacy, we do have the law that protects it. It's actually a general law under the Personal Data Protection Act. And then on top of that, there's the banking, regulations under the Financial Services Act. Now, privacy enhancing technology is something that is kind of like a new terminology that's being used. But if you actually take it from the point of view of data protection for the purpose of payments and making sure that the personal data of a payer and payee is protected, that is something that is actually a work in progress that has been there for a long, long time. Specifically, it's actually in the context of open banking, open finance, which Malaysia is pursuing right this moment. And at the same time, if you look at where we are at by Q3, God willing, we would be having a POC in place for the industry to test in. And in that particular construct, as you correctly pointed out, privacy enhancing technology will be very, very relevant because how we share personal data with our own participants, across participants, and for that matter, we want to be able to do it on a cross-border basis. You know that we already connected across, several corridors. All that comes into play, right about immediately. So, in that sense, where we are coming from is that we want to be able to, ensure there is anonymity except for the people who actually really need to know the information, right? So, and we don't want to have a situation where you have an open finance and open banking platform, but data is actually being transported, backwards and forwards without it being encrypted, it being having this, PET in place. Yeah, maybe I'll stop there before we get into the deeper things. Yeah.
Interesting. I would have had more question on that, but I'm going to let Jay in straight away and see when Aslina is saying this, is this what you think about when you think about privacy enhancing technology? And also, what do you think it can enable? Can you even point into certain areas of what is Lina saying with the open data frameworks and cross-border payments?
Right. No, yeah, thank you very much for having me. Like you pointed out, privacy enhancing technologies are a very complicated topic. It's not simple, and there is no silver bullet out in market. Companies can claim it just for sake of claiming, but yeah, there's no single tech which can solve all the problem. And the core element here is that why do we need pets? We need pets because I, as the custodian or the owner of the data, I can't compute every function out there in the world to avail services. Which brings the topic of delegation. Some enterprises need to be delegated, need to hold custody of my data. I can be enterprise or a retail user, and that delegation should not require trust assumptions. That's the ultimate thing which can happen in a perfect world, which is the party which is computing on my data should be just able to compute what I have delegated the party to do, nothing else. If that is possible, then we have achieved a perfect privacy. Otherwise, the moment we hear about privacy toolings, the one word which hurts me a lot is data sharing. We don't need to share data. I mean, once we share data, there is nothing involved which can stop copying of data and cross-selling it. I can talk about all the legal compliances and everything. There is no way involved to stop me from copying and cross-selling and do whatever I want. Because the current tech are not there to verify the user of data after data has been shared. So when I hear privacy, I typically think of proper delegation, which does not require any trust assumption. The party should be able to compute just consented function and should not be able to see my data. If those things are achieved, we are perfect. We have achieved something which we can be proud of down the line. And there are technical movements happening, which we can talk about in detail in that direction. And yeah, we will reach there in some time.
Yeah, so that layer is what I always refer to, that zero knowledge proof. That's what we're saying, I'm saying it's okay, I have it, and then we can do whatever that is. But sorry, I'm taking it down quite a bit here. But when we spoke, you talked about efficiency more, and that it even happens within the organization more than outside and between parties. Could you just elaborate a little bit on real life cases that you've seen on this?
Yeah, so just
We're getting some fresh news straight in from the factory.
I know, yeah, probably some issue with the booking. Right. So, I mean, there are very simple cases. Let's say I am a payment company. I have my phone number of all the users of my payment company, and I want to enrich my phone number so that I can provide better services. When I say enrichment, I mean I want to associate each phone number with the type of expense they do, their economic status, or some kind of categorization. One way is that I will just sign a legal contract with a data enricher. There are many more in market and do it. But in that process, I'm leaking all the lists of the customers who through my mobile number database. If we use pets, there are ways to just do comparison between two data sets. The querying party can query in the data, use data set, and figure out if there's a match with the phone number or not. If there is a match, they will retrieve data. But if we use privacy technologies properly, they will not expose to this data broker whom I search for and what data actually was retrieved. And that's a very simple abstraction of two-party data collaboration. Data never moved. And
Yeah.
even if it moved, it was pure encrypted search, encrypted operation happening around. If you read, you mentioned about BIS. So BIS did a project called Mandala for cross-border payments, right? In that, they are doing sanctionless check using privacy tools, where they do two-bank collaboration, two-bank search without exposing whom they search for before the transaction happens. There are many more checks which can be done. Secure search is the most primitive form factor, which yeah we can talk about. You can go
Yeah.
as complicated as running an ML model on complicated data sets.
Yeah, no, yeah, perfect for this discussion here. Now, I'm just going to bounce back to Selena on this. So, just in this example where we're using telephone numbers and enriched data, the challenges you see to include MSME, can you see that this technology could enable more rich data? And what are the challenges you see? Is it around AML, identity? What do you see in Malaysia today?
So one thing about the MSMEs in Malaysia, I think for that matter across ASEAN, is actually the formal legal establishment, right? So for one thing, they may not be organized in such a way that they're registered with any form of formal registry, and they may be conducting businesses under different names, right? So basically, where I'm coming at is actually the data on them and the digital identity as well as their digital presence is kind of like fragmented and is causing kind of like noises in verifying whether or not he is who he is, right? And to link that particular identity and track record and transactions, you need to kind of like combine a lot of unstructured data and structured data. You'll have situations where they don't even have a bank account, they actually have it through money changers or informal providers like credit providers that's not in the formal banking system. All they have is actually deposit accounts, right? So basically you have a situation where even the name of the shop that they have does not match the name of the business that's in the registry if they're ever registered in the first place. So that is actually the very the most well-known challenge, I would say, in getting them to be known and for that matter to even use PET. But I think it's going back to Jay's point, right? That's where we feel that having some kind of tool where we can actually combine all this digital presence data and kind of like do some kind of validation so that they can have some kind of, I would say, on chain or kind of like a combination of information and data that could form their own identity, and we kind of like transport it to them neatly to say that is this you, and the moment that forms, you can have then a proper track record that's built onto it, and they would then be able to avail to some kind of credit services or validation services, and therefore start to be served by the formal financial sector.
You talked about it like there's a mosaic identity where you take all the different pieces without actually knowing the pieces. So when we don't know them, it's very hard to put them together or where they should come from. So Jay, this all sounds great, and this is what I have a strong belief in. But what stands between us to actually start to do that? So if we look at a governance arrangement and institutional models that need to be in place for PET to really be used in a high trust environment.
Right. Probably there definitely is a gap between capabilities of different privacy technologies and understandings from legal community, because and if that gap can be reduced, probably adoption will kick off. Very simple case, like we as a company, we do lots of research and also business using technology like multi-party compute. And in multi-party compute, you take data, you shard it into pieces, and then you can compute on that. So one single shard has no meaning at all. Even quantum computing can't break and create an inference out of it if they capture less than a threshold or number of shards. And you can locate these shares in a different geographies, let's say for the sake of a proper trust model. Now, when regulators will come into picture, they will think that you have moved data actually between borders, but that's not true. You have moved a share which is totally nonsense from information perspective, and this gap needs to be reduced, which probably requires some frameworks, more communication, and more communication with experts and the researchers in the field, and some kind of a framework thinking model, which companies are working on, we are working on as well. But yeah, that gap is something which is stopping a couple of adoptions. And every company out there is waiting, okay, the moment regulator will tell me I can use this tech, then I will be happy. But that's not going to happen in world. no regulator will tell to use these pets. They can just vouch for the guarantees in a more non-biased way. And the best thing I have seen so far is from ICO in UK. What they have done to popularize pets, their adoption is uncomparable in anywhere in geography in terms of nations' contributions. So ICO websites very much properly articulate which pets can solve what. Because yeah, like I told, there's no silver bullet. But such initiatives from legal community to understand more will help, and there we can certainly help as a company as well. But yeah, these two tools need to talk.
It's interesting, and in one thing we always say we shouldn't regulate the tech or like sign off the text. It is really the outcomes that we're interested in. I think though that maybe one thing lacking a little bit still is that capacity building and understanding of the different flavors of the tech that need to come first to agree on what definitions need to be in play. But Selena, I know that you have lots of knowledge and experience from sandboxes. Is this a use case to try to test privacy enhancing technology with participants in the market to see what we need to do and to help to understand what it can enable? What do you think about that? What could be a road for that?
I think, yeah. I mean, to me, one of the key things that is stopping financial inclusion, right, is actually data sharing. And open data is one way of getting there. And PET is actually something that you can certainly explore and leverage for a secure data sharing to happen. Now, to me, if we want to be looking at it into kind of like with great clarity, specific use cases needs to be built, in the sense that, you know, you need to build, first is, you know, what use case are you trying to solve for? The second layer would be what kind of data do you need? And then the third layer would be what kind of consent framework do you need to have in place? And lastly, what kind of PET that can facilitate those particular, you know, levels of details, right? Because a few things, first, one is that I fully agree with.
No. Oh gosh, I thought it was me that got lost, but I can see Jay moving. I fell out before. So we'll see why Selena is. Oh, there she is. You're back on.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
This is
sorry.
where you dropped out.
Yeah. So basically, on the layering of these things, I fully agree with Jay in the sense that if you're looking at it from a pure data portability point of view, data should not be moving places, right? And it should not be stored by someone else. What should happen is access to data the way I want it, the level I want it, the time I want it. And therefore, you know, you can have that integrity in place and intact for certain use cases to happen, and only for that use case, right? Because otherwise the presence of abuses will come into play. So in essence, where I'm coming from is that, you know, we need to be looking at all these very, very kind of like relevant, unsolvable use cases that can easily be solved with PET, and then, you know, kind of like deeper and start to test it in different in very different environments. First in within the country, and then perhaps maybe cross border. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's almost like testing it in country and then work towards for a niche use case. What is the minimum standard we need to
Correct. Yeah.
reach?
Yeah.
Interesting. So Jay, like that's quite a defined thing what to do. If you would talk to an institution about, can we trust this on the, no, can we do this on this use case? What is the most common concern they bring to you?
The common concern they bring is, first of all, it's very hard. When I say there are ways to do compute on encrypted data, it's a bit hard to digest, first of all. So yeah, first we need to cross that barrier. Okay, that is possible. Then yeah, we need to prove somehow and get their trust that whenever such collaborations are happening between multiple institutions, you are not actually moving data, you are just moving compute, moving inference. So yeah, explaining that certainly becomes challenging at point. It depends on the person we are talking to. But for non-technical users, certainly, yeah, that's a friction which I see being faced by different companies. And we have been designing proper tooling to address that through simulations or through other techniques. But the guarantee will come through proper audits. So audit has been helping in general. Once you can claim that, okay, you have audited this code through a third party who understand those things, then they will. That's number one. And one fiction which we have been also understanding is a couple of such initiatives and adoption of pets require creation of a consortium, a structure, or network, and that's a big lift. A company which is still a small startup can't do it. That requires more lift coming from bigger organizations or some consortiums, because then you can appreciate pets much better. Let's say, hypothetically, we are creating a network of all the banks in Singapore so that we can create much better AML modeling. It's possible. Theoretically, we have proven it. If all the banks in Singapore can talk, your MLs will drop down by huge margin in terms of, I'm not able to catch. But that requires everybody to buy in. And then who will do it? So those kinds of questions also comes into picture when you have to deploy. So the form factor and productization of pets is something which people are working on right now, so that the integration, the adoption becomes much more easier. But yeah, there's a trade-off between central party running all the infrastructure or involving all the parties together. And that has to do with who will manage DevOps for all these technologies. So yeah, those things we have to handle. Once we do it, probably adoption will kick off.
Yeah, I hear you. It's a challenge there. We're doing quite a bit of migration to quantum safe cryptography, and also one of those super techie topics. But you need to have the business folks in the room. You need them to understand, to allocate the budget to do the POC, what we need to do. So just very quick, just like one sentence from each of you, because before we get Holly on. One thing you would like to see the APFF and EPA leading in this. What is it? One thing, if we could do this. It's a hard one, I know. So I give you a few seconds to think. And also, you audience, if you have anything that you think this is what we need more, just write your suggestion in the chat and we'll pick it up, because it is a topic we want to do more with, but it's quite tricky to know where to start. So Eslina, you're nodding, so maybe you have something for us.
Well, it's not so much a one word or one sentence, but I would love for this PET to have a defined role for, the key players, like the ecosystem, the users, the regulators, the payment infrastructure provider, kind of like have this defined role, kind of like, wish list of some sort that would enable people to say, okay, now I'm going to act on the PET technology. I'm going to take a look at the BIS paper, and I'm going to see what role do I play? What am I going to do next?
Yep. That's a good one. That feels like something we can tackle. It's not too high up there, so let's.
It's not too high up. Yeah.
Jay, what's from you?
Yeah, I would probably be very happy if we can think from a first principle perspective and just break the paradigm of data delegation or delegated computation, and then define the whole spectrum. And then every solution can come in and fit in over there and with a predefined expectations. Something similar was done in custody space 2 or 3 years back. Everybody was claiming around 3 years back is their self-custody until FTX happened. Then things started to make more proper form factor. Yeah, something like that. Proper first principle based framework for defining delegated computation, and that a consortium organizations like you can do it.
Yeah, we might need a little bit of help from you on that one. Thank you very much, Eslina and Jay. It's really interesting when we take those heavy tech topics into what we're doing as practitioners from day to day.